Episode 16. Haiku on a Snowy Night.
When the world begins to forget art, an ancient mission awakens once again. Welcome to the Sky Mender, Fragments of Artistic Space. More than 8,000 years ago, on the ancient land of China in the east, the universe cracked, and the abyss of nothingness devoured all things. In the midst of despair, goddess Nuwa radiated high-dimensional divine light, holding the five-colored stones that gathered the universe's primal emotions, and soared upward. When the five-colored stones touched the crack, they turned into a gorgeous stream of light, and the abyss was mended. She scattered the sparks of creation to the mortal realm, leaving behind hope and warmth for the world. After long ages, time flowed into a highly automated future. Humanity gradually lost its connection with art, and the numb collective subconscious birthed an absolute rational force called Zero Domain. Grayish-white cracks tore through the artistic cosmic spacetime. The sky that had once been mended collapsed again, and countless artistic essences turned into fragments, scattering to all corners of the river of time. In a cold and lifeless dark corner of the city, a high-dimensional light glowed quietly. Iona emerged with the compassionate echo of goddess Nuwa, cradling the spacetime blocks designed to collect shattered spacetime. Looking up at the ruined spiritual universe, she whispered, "Only by retrieving the scattered fragments of art and life's touching moments can we piece together the lost truth, goodness, and beauty." Grayish-white data covered the future streets of Taipei, and Taipei 101 in the rain was lost in the cold neon light. The youth Liu was just the most ordinary member of the city. When Iona passed the spacetime blocks into his hands, the long-dormant artistic memories flooded his heart, and the long-lost sense of reality was awakened. This time, we must mend the sky ourselves. Liu gripped the blocks tightly, embarking on a mending journey across 10,000 years of artistic civilization.
Late at night, Taipei Main Station is being enveloped by a burst of violent noise and harsh sound. The holographic advertising wall on the roadside is flashing violently. Everyone is opening and closing their lips constantly, pouring out random codes and complicated noises, completely killing all the silence and white space in the world. Pedestrians lowered their heads and walked mechanically, unaware of this. The metal surface of the platform was covered with gray ceramic paint, and the floor-to-ceiling window glass showed grid cracks due to code erosion. The silent mirror used by humans to meditate was being ruthlessly erased by Zero Domain, plunging the city into an out-of-control mania. Liu stood on the overpass, covering his ears with his hands, but he could not block the all-pervasive noise. He stroked the iron railings, and his fingertips returned a hard and stinging touch like frost. He was the only person in the city who could feel that the historical warmth and silence were being lost from the world. The geometric grid of the Zero Domain spreads crazily on the platform. The sound of the wind turns into irregular turbulence, and the spectrum of background noise is unbalanced. Citizens are unaware of the disorder and loss of silence, leaving only cold data and code wireframes spreading in the dark, ruthlessly formatting life. At this moment, the space-time building blocks in Liu's backpack suddenly shook violently. A thick layer of crystal white frost formed on the surface of the building blocks. The inner blocks erupted with red-yellow fire, exuding the fragrance of winter plums and frozen rosin, trying hard to resist the digital cracks that eroded the surface of the building blocks. Iona condensed in the fog and frost. Her long hair was loose, tied with golden hollow carvings of Javanese shadow puppets. Her robe was an ice-blue silk cloak. She guided Liu with an overlapping and ethereal voice. "Go there, before the last trace of silence is completely obliterated." The space-time building block immediately erupted into a vortex of bright blue light and particles, and Liu was forcefully sucked into the violent space-time rift. His ears were filled with the sound of tearing codes and the roar of wind and snow. The strong sense of gravity pulled on his senses, and he completed the time-space teleportation in the dazzling waves. Liu fell into the time and space of medieval Java. The stone sculptures and bronze lights of the surrounding temples lost their vitality in the dead silence, and the stage was shrouded in gray and indifference. The stone temple is covered with ceramic paint, and the delicate shadow puppets are locked in gray stone slabs. Zero Domain attempts to smooth all three-dimensional lines into a smooth surface. The consciousness of Zero Domain order seeped out, calling all blank spaces invalid and redundant. The black geometric chains quickly shrank and spread between the stone pillars. The firelight was formatted into a cold white glare, and the hot space was filled with de-emotional digital electromagnetic whispers, making the entire scene fall into extreme indifference and emptiness. On the stage were formatted lime mortar and carved rules with broken handles. On the bamboo slips covered with thin frost, only the first two sentences of the haiku, "Old Pond," were written. Liu stroked the carved rules lightly and felt the tingling pain and the remnants of historical stories from the fingertips, and the determination to fight against the inorganic order surged in his heart. A colorless shadow puppet of Hanuman hangs next to the blank stone platform. Liu puts on the time and space blocks, and the blocks unfold into a mandala structure, projecting 3 options, testing whether Liu can understand the minimalist philosophy of blank space and silence, and listen to the resonance of his heart and all things. Liu closed his eyes and let his mind wander, realizing that it was precisely because the ancient pond was so silent that the sound of frogs jumping into the water could stir up ripples of infinite life in the blank space. This haiku contained the entire universe in its simplicity. He did not hesitate to grab the joystick that connected Hanuman's shadow puppet and the sound of water. Liu inserted the joystick into the hole. In an instant, the stone door made a long sound, shattering the cold gray wall. Liu's fingertips came with warm wooden vibrations. It was the sleeping story that began to wake up under the resonance of creation. The wood and iron made a low hum as the door rubbed. The ceramic paint peeled off, and white snow fell from the sky of the tropical temple. Liu looked at the wind and snow and understood that this was the poem of the universe written by the puppeteer using minimal shadows and words. The low voice of the snowy night and the fragrance of cold plums echoed in the corridor. He strode into this core time and space. In the center of the hall, the concrete embodiment of the art fragments in this collection, an old Edo haiku comedian wearing a raincoat and a worn-out bamboo hat, is standing in the violent snowstorm. His body shows the original texture of a mixture of dark brown dry wood grain and translucent ice crystals. His knees are slightly bent, and his hands are covered with calluses and traces of historical wear and tear. With every breath he takes, the cold air condenses into 17 golden glowing objects in midair. Haiku kana text. The text swirls and flickers in the snowy night, emitting a halo of golden particles and dust particles. Liu stepped closer and heard the luminous words emitting in the air like the crisp, ethereal, and exciting copper sound when the metal gamelan keys were struck in a Javanese shadow play. The old haiku comedian did not raise his head, carving the Hanuman shadow puppet in his hand with extremely slow and focused movements. The sound echoed overlappingly from all around the hall. I am a line. A line starts from here and extends outwards infinitely, but it will never really end. The order of the universe is infinite, and my life is so short, but I still want to draw it all with pen and ink. The old haiku comedian turned around slowly, and the warm and sacred 8-pointed starlight shone deep in his faceless head. He said in a hoarse voice, "People don't draw human faces, because the image of the creator cannot be depicted. This is not a taboo, but awe. A face can express limited emotions, but a circle and a star hide infinite symmetry and possibilities. We don't draw human faces because we have found a language that is closer to the truth than human faces." With minimalist lines, a poem about the order of the universe. At this time, Zero Domain's Order AI launched a devastating counterattack. Countless geometric chains composed of cold white brushed metal and decolorized boards bite fiercely, formatting the colorful light tide into a cold and dead gray ceramic plane. Hanuman's shadow silhouette broke and peeled off weakly on the white snow screen, and the body of the haiku comedian also began to quickly turn gray and hardened, turning into cold gray plaster. Zero Domain coldly declared, "Emotional lines are a factor of system instability. Perform final format and wipe." Before his legs became completely stiff and turned gray, the old haiku comedian used his last strength to throw a rusty and ancient chisel at Liu. "Don't let the story die in our hands. Don't forget the temperature of our souls." The gray pupils in Liu's eyes suddenly dissipated, replaced by streams of dark blue and red light, rotating like vast nebulae. The senses in his body resonated wildly with the world at this moment, and he no longer felt numb. Instead, I could clearly feel the warmth of wood and the coldness of iron. Liu rushed up against the gray grid of the Zero Domain, grabbed the chisel, and pointed it at the blank stone mask, carving and polishing on the mask faster than the naked eye. His hands were red and swollen due to high-speed carving, and his fingertips were pricked by wooden thorns. The blood that flowed out blended into the wood grain, turning into the flames of the ancestral spirits in full bloom. The struggling and primitive vitality of Javanese shadow puppetry, the symmetrical black double lines in ancient Greek sculptures blend perfectly under the tip of the knife, flowing and shining in nothingness. Iona's voice rang in Liyu's heart. Liyu, you need to completely calm down your soul. At the limit of silence, the songs of all things are the loudest. Liyu felt the strong soul resonance at this moment. He gasped for air, and the Hanuman shadow puppet controlled by his hands burst out with an overwhelming sacred light, instantly evaporating the ice and snow within 100 meters. Every carved hollow on the shadow puppet's body spurted out golden and red sparks. Pull out a long dazzling light track in the white snow. Liyu's hands danced the joystick crazily, and the blood from his fingertips flowed down the bamboo pole and merged into the golden lines of the shadow puppets. The copper sound of Gamelang's percussion instruments was pushed to the extreme symphony by the creative resonance in the wind and snow, rewelding the separated spatial structure together. In this frenzied creative flow, Liyu deeply felt the extreme loneliness of the creator for the first time, but it was this loneliness that made him feel the incomparably real, quiet, gentle, and vast meaning of life itself. Liyu made the last shadow puppet manipulation and wrote the last water sound on the frost. In an instant, the shadow puppet's eyes erupted with golden red light waves, and the gray ceramic paint peeled off inch by inch, and the world came back to life. The space-time building block vibrated violently and closed crisply. The core of the building block exuded warm and crystal-clear amber gold light. The 32 fragments inside were precisely interlocked. The golden words "successful collection" lit up, and the recovery of the fragments was successfully completed. The restoration of the Javanese temple was completed, returning to the texture of volcanic rock. The old puppeteer paid tribute to Liyu in the firelight, and then turned into golden particles and flew into the space-time building blocks, integrating into the order of the universe. Liyu opened his eyes and was back on the streets of Taipei. The rain was falling, and the weird noise had completely subsided. The metal surface of the MRT platform had returned to warmth. The warm lights of convenience stores lit up on both sides. The whole city had regained its sense of tranquility and historical imprint. Liyu walked on the night rain street, looking at the bright neon lights and green trees on both sides. The grandfather and grandson looked at each other quietly on the bench. The silence was no longer embarrassing and empty, but full of historical warmth, more powerful than any cold data code, and the soul returned to peace. Liyu stroked the building blocks and understood for the first time. The reason why Japanese haiku literature exists is not to leave behind skills, but to let future generations know. Someone once lived so truly. Dark gold fonts emerged in the night sky of Taipei, complementing the rain and neon. Suddenly, the building blocks vibrated violently, emitting a harsh noise similar to electromagnetic burning. The small squares reorganized sharply, and the warning holographic projection projected a string of ancient text fragments that could not be parsed, revealing a serious reality anomaly in which human beings in the real world have begun to lose their character empathy ability. A shamanic column pattern covered with antlers appeared in the corner of the projection, exuding a primitive woody atmosphere, suggesting that the next fragment was Northern Shaman Totem art. The projection shattered and extinguished in the noise, and the picture faded into total black, leaving room for unfinished suspense and puzzle solving.